So let's transition that into number 2 with Washington. You have Daniels there over Drake Maye. Do you think this is ultimately how this all plays out based on everything you've talked? Like you just basically hit on it, that it sounds like more teams are debating Jayden and Caleb more than Drake, which is a massive departure from where we were at for the months right after the regular season of the college football season was over.
Yeah, again, it started with me going back and studying the tape. And I love Drake, man. We can get into him, but there are inconsistencies in his tape that you don't see in Jayden's. And I, to me, like when I'm talking to people in the league, like I want to have, when I make those conversations, I want to have done my tape assessment so I can have a conversation that is two-sided and it's not like, hey, what do you think? Right? Because I'm not going to get information from people and they're not going to respect me. And this is over years. This isn't just this year. They're not going to respect me enough to like actually talk ball if I don't have an opinion. And I've had plenty of conversations with guys where we completely disagree, and they wind up being right sometimes. It doesn't matter, but you better be educated and you better be able to talk about that throw in the third quarter against UCLA or whatever it is, right? And so it started with me going back, season's over, really studying the tape and being like, wait, like when I just independently like take a step back, not all the hype and not all the noise, there's not a big difference from the tape in 2023. Now, I think the 2022 tape for Caleb is better than any of these quarterbacks, what they put together in any other year. But this past year, I didn't see a big difference. I'm not saying they're the same exact player by any stretch, but there's a lot of similarities, the ability to create, the ability to be a running threat, and the ability to off-schedule throws. So I think that they're very close. And then I talk to guys in the league that I respect and trust, and they're saying the same thing. And so to me, what else do I need? I trust my evaluation. I trust the people in the league that I talk to every year that are typically spot on with what's going to happen. And it's Caleb 1, but it's Daniels 1A. And then there's almost like another tier where you get into Drake Maye. And even though he's in that next tier, he's a quarterback, so he's probably going to go 3 to New England. And then J.J. McCarthy's in that 4th tier, still a quarterback. You'd like to get him late first, early second. He's not going to last that long. So maybe he goes in the top 10. So we can get to all that. But my point is, Jayden, I go back to a conversation I had last year with Brian Kelly before I was working the sideline doing the game as an analyst. And I talked to Brian Kelly, and I was asking him just about Jayden. And he kind of came up to me and really wanted to talk more than we talked in the meeting with all the other people there. And he's like, listen, he's like, you and I have had these conversations going back to Notre Dame and all the other quarterbacks. Like, I need you to understand this. Like, he can throw with anticipation, even though you're not seeing that on tape. He can make accurate throws in those situations. He can go through progressions, even though maybe you don't see that on tape because it feels like he's locking on. The thing that we're trying to unlock in him is to trust himself. He trusts himself at times in practice because there's not a consequence to it. And he said, the worst thing, it drives me friggin' crazy right now because everyone in the media is like, oh, he's gone 5 games. Jayden hasn't thrown an interception. If you remember, that was all the talk. Jayden, no interceptions, 5 games. So they're going to play Tennessee that day, and they get beat bad. But his thing was, I want him to throw a pick. He goes, it sounds crazy, but I want him to throw a pick. So it's like, all right, we got that done with. It's not the end of the world. Come out and just like trust your eyes. Get the ball out before the receiver breaks. He goes, right now he's stuck on wanting to see that receiver open because then he knows that it's the safe move. I don't want him to be safe. He goes, the second we unlock that in him, he's going to take off. And in that game, the first 3 throws were like deep outs where the ball had to come out. And basically, I could tell Brian told him, like, don't even go to your second read. This is going to be your read. It's one-on-one. Make the throw on time. Whatever happens, happens. And he did. And you started to see it in that game, even though they struggled. But from that point on, there was a confidence in him. And we saw him just absolutely take off. And truly, like one of the most remarkable 2-year turnarounds in tape is Jayden Daniels 2022, 2023 from what we had seen from him before.
Yeah, look, I think Burrow's the most recent example of somebody that's going to go this high, where his first year at LSU, you're like, all right,
yeah, it's pretty good
there.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you're like, wait, what is this?
It's very similar. And they both had great receivers. And if you were doubting him, you're saying, well, it's just 1 year of greatness. He's got great receivers that he's throwing to. But honestly, at the end of when you really study it independently of everything else, they just played at an extraordinarily high level. And we saw Burrow, the number 1 overall pick, and the Bengals would do that 100 out of 100 times again.
Right, because part of it, when I looked at some of the Drake May stuff again, and look, he had Tez Walker for more of the season than he didn't, who's a real difference maker. But then when you think of Neighbors, who's going to be a top 5, top 6 picks, and Thomas, who throughout the
Gonna be
season
a
you were
first
like,
round
wait,
pick too. Yep.
yeah, 17 touchdowns. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
wait, is this guy better than the other guy? Look, and I think there's probably an argument that Neighbors is a more complete receiver, and that's why the mocks have him going probably 20 slots higher than his teammate. But you're right. I mean, Jayden was basically perfect, and maybe it'd be looked at a little bit differently if the defense had just been average enough. All right, so we've got Maye. Will New England, do you think Belichick not being there means they'll prioritize a receiver to put with Maye if Maye goes third? Because especially when you have the rookie scale quarterback contract and then not getting him a weapon the way, San Francisco's done a pretty good job with obviously Debo, and it's a little different with Purdy, but like AJ Brown's a great example. You draft Devontae Smith for Jalen Hurts, you make the trade for AJ Brown.
Yep.
And like now the world starts to open up, and it's just an easier job when you have one of those, say, 10 to 12 difference makers. I'm not calling AJ like a top 5 guy, but to think that New England, I would say post Belichick, like that would be the number one priority if you're looking at what's gone wrong with the development of the quarterbacks post Brady.
Yeah, and throughout Brady's career, it was about finding receivers that fit Brady. And don't want to bog everyone down, but like option routes they needed smarter than they needed. Smart was more important than talent, and for most of the receiver evaluations, because if Brady, if maybe one time it's a mistake, but the second time that you're not in the place you're supposed to be, because everything more so than any offense I can remember watching and evaluating the NFL, like it was so much about if they do this, we're gonna outcut. If they do this, in cut. If they bring up, you got to go vertical. So every route had like 3 options based off of what the defense was doing. And if you made a mistake once, like, all right, let's see. You started making that mistake 2, 3, 4 times, Brady's going to quit on you. And that's what happened. They brought in a lot of guys in free agency. They tried drafting some guys in the first, second, third round. And a lot of those guys didn't work. So lesser talented receivers who had better football acumen worked for him. And then I think they kind of got stuck in that. Well, we can get receivers anywhere, right? Like the Steelers always get their receivers in the second round, and other teams like third, fourth.
Yeah, but they're good at it.
They're good at it.
Steelers are
they're good at it, but you don't have Brady anymore. And even if his name wasn't Brady, it's like not what we're doing anymore. We don't have a quarterback who operates at that level mentally, so it didn't work. So I'm fascinated to see New England. Like, I think they're going to take a quarterback. I think in this scenario, Drake May's the pick at number 3. But I'm interested to see what's the emphasis now on speed. Like, to me, watching the Patriots, the lack of speed in the back 7, right? Defensively, the lack of speed at wide receiver and playmakers and difference makers is what they've been missing for the last few years. And they didn't have Brady, who was making up for all those sins. He was masking all the problems. And so they kind of, from a personnel standpoint, I think they shifted so much one way that they struggled to come back the other way when they needed to. And now they've got kind of a fresh start from a personnel department, standpoint. I'm interested to see what they do, because I'm with you. I think it's quarterback first, and then maybe second round, like Ricky Pearsall from Florida, who ran in the 4.4s. Lad McConkey, who ran faster, ran really fast. We knew he was fast, but is explosive in his athletic movements. Like, I think they get in a deep wide receiver group. This is an opportunity to not only solve quarterback, but to get him a young guy they can grow old together with.